afternoon, and welcome to the WeBelieveDigital.com news break. We are glad you're joining us today. We've got plenty to go over. We have a call-in line. We'd like you to write it down and save it in your phone. We Believe Digital call-in 800-492-5186. My name is Chris Young, and I'll be your co-host today. And we're broadcasting live from the heart of the Deep South, Jackson, Mississippi. We have all kinds of things going on down here, and today we're going to try and touch on some of those issues and maybe get a little bit deeper than you might get with a normal news broadcast station, which tends to just get the kind of the meaty little clips, and we'll try to go a little bit deeper than that. Again, thank you for joining us, and thank you for our sponsors supporting the program. And alongside me today is Mr. Socrates Garrett. How you doing this afternoon, Mr. Garrett?
I'm doing well, Chris. It's always good being in the studio with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a great opportunity here, and we're glad people are joining us. Let's kick it off.
Okay. All right.
You want to take a pick? You want to go to elections, or you want to go to these mass shootings that everybody's talking about?
Chris, I think that crime is the number one issue in this country, and so I think we ought to kick it off with crime in our local area as well as on these national mass shootings.
Well, I just reviewed some numbers this morning, and lo and behold. Now, this is through 2 days ago. It's just hard to believe. Through June 5th, 246 mass shootings in the United States of America. And this is absolutely on pace to either match or exceed what happened in the country last year, which was the deadliest year in our history for mass shootings after the uptick began in 2019.
Wow. Mass shootings. Are they a form of protest, or are they, what's the underlying cause, the root cause of these shootings?
They say at least 4 people have to be shot at, not necessarily killed, in order to become classified as a mass shooting. And what's behind it, I noticed the uptick is in 2019. So that really gets me thinking. It really gets me thinking about the causes, what the causes and conditions could be. The report also did specify that, and I have some extra data here, but the report did specify that the vast majority, the overwhelming majority of these shootings, the shooters are young, very young, and they're white, and they're Republican based on the writings that they've done. So that's something that falls out here. It's not old black men that are doing the shooting, or Japanese Americans that are out, females that are out there doing the shootings. It's young white males.
Well, then it ought to be easier to come to the root cause, and then if it's not something that's spread across all ethnic groups. Mm-hmm. Then there's a specific thing that is driving that, and we need to spend some time focusing on that. Apparently, there is some anger or fear that's driving that type of activity.
I've mentioned this before, but I continue to go back to this census in this country. It's been my belief for decades. We get wiser, we get older, we learn more information, but it's been my belief for decades that, and I didn't see it in my younger life, but there's a white nucleus, European American nucleus of people here in this country, and they believe this country is their country. Now, this is a country of immigrants, and yet these people believe that this is their country, and when they see these census numbers shifting, as they really have, starting in, say, 1960, as they see these census numbers shifting, and now, based on the 2020 census, the white European American population in America has declined to 57% when it was once, 90+%.
Well, I mean, to individuals think that this is their country, I think that all Americans should feel that this is their country, and so I don't think it's wrong to have a feeling that this is my country, my country, 'tis of thee.
Yeah.
And so I get that. But if you're saying that you want a country that does not have any other ethnic groups in it, then that creates a different dynamic.
That's right, and that's
yeah, and so that would be like all of the Africans saying that they just want Africans in Africa, and China would just want Chinese in China.
Yeah.
And that would create a tremendous disturbance in the world. Could you imagine that all Europeans would have to leave South Africa?
The tribalism at its highest points.
Yeah.
But I think what I didn't mention before is this. I mean, this nucleus, and I can't give you an exact percentage, but we can start out saying around 30. And moving up from there, it's not just that they think this is their country. Anybody's got the right to do that if you're a resident or citizen here, but it's more than that. It's another layer beyond that, and that is that, especially with this white replacement theory, there's people believing that there's other races, other ethnicities that are attempting to replace them in this society. And so now you got all these racial feelings all stirred up, and so that becomes part of the rest of the story on that.
Right. I get that. And white replacement theory is something that needs some more attention, because whether it's true or untrue, it's an issue that needs to be dealt with, and so that we don't incur these mass shootings at the level that we're currently experiencing. But Chris, crime is so evident and obvious in all cities that you go in these days. In the city of Jackson, what's the crime stats like here?
Yeah, we're again same as the nation. Pardon me, the numbers we were talking about before were for mass shootings, but the shootings that are going on here in Jackson again are on pace to match or exceed, I believe it's 62 or 63 murders in Jackson so far this year, and is on pace to match or exceed the numbers from last year, where we were dubbed the deadliest city in America per capita. Wow.
Now the irony here is that 95+% of crime that's committed in an African American majority populated city is black on black crime.
That's correct.
So what would be the underlying root causes of black on black crime?
Well, I go first to poverty. Wherever you're going to see deprivation, wherever you're going to see what I might refer to as a state of lack, when people are lacking, when they don't have their basic needs met, I don't think being poor is a crime, But when people just get the little crumbs of the American dream, just little tidbits, little flakes and specks of the American dream, that brings about other issues, and this has been going on in the Deep South for, many other parts of the country have become much more progressive, much more inclusive, embracing the concept of participation, but not here in Mississippi.
Well, I think you're right. I think you're on point. I think that the number of murders that we are experiencing in Jackson is related to economic conditions and the lack of opportunity. I see that. Broken families and the education system under tremendous pressure. I get that. And so it leads me to say that just like we better understand what white replacement theory?
I sent him an invitation this morning to, either do an interview in his office or to come here to the studio to do an interview, because he recently released a report saying, really highlighting that where a lot of elected officials in this state don't seem to care or seem to have some apathy towards the capital city of Jackson as far as the advancement of this 85% African American city. But he doesn't. He clearly articulated that we need to find a way to have a prosperous and a vibrant and a safe capital city in Jackson. But, and if that's the way he feels, I really want to be able to speak to him about, what's underneath, what's that going to take to do that, and what can we do immediately to begin that process to move that forward.
Chris, many people after yesterday's elections all throughout the country, many people say that the vote is one of the answers to solving many of the conditions that ail our communities and society. What happened in the votes yesterday in Mississippi?
It was a mixed. It was a mixed bag, and the thing that caught my eye the most was not the individual elections in the 4 voting districts in the state, but it was the overall turnout. There's people that are estimating now, not everything's said and done. There's still ballots to be counted and still numbers to be tallied, but it appears that the turnout may not have reached 10%.
Oh, say that again?
The turnout for the primary voting yesterday, statewide, all 4 districts, may not have reached 10%.
10%. I think that's voter apathy. It is very, very worse.
Yeah.
And what's driving that apathy?
Again, if you looked at it from the lens here in the 2nd Congressional District, I might include what's going on in Jackson. And again, the poverty and the disparity and the, what I believe is discrimination and oppression of black people in our black city, and sometimes by black elected officials. But what about up north, where there seem to be a lot of dollars up there? And what about down at the Gulf Coast? There seem to be a thriving economies down there, all kinds of businesses down there where there's no way you could need to be out of work down there on the Gulf Coast.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that you bring up the north part of our state. Tupelo, Mississippi, on the northeast corridor up there. Very affluent area, surviving and thriving and growing. I don't know if they think they're part of Memphis or part of Tennessee or part of Mississippi, but I'm sure it's a blend. And then on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, where you got Ingalls Shipbuilding and you got all of the resort area and you got beautiful beaches down there, great entertainment down on the Gulf Coast area. And so Mississippi is thriving in that area as well. Yeah. But that being said, Mr. Guest, who was the district attorney from the county of Madison and Rankin, yeah, and an incumbent that was running for Congress, did not perform as well as many expected.
No, he didn't get 50% of the vote. It looks like a probable runoff. I mean, I just checked the last thing I could find available before we walked in the studio, and it looks like it'll be a runoff between him and a Navy flyer, Michael Cassidy, newcomer to the political world. He's flew jets for the Navy for years on active duty. He's now in the Naval Reserve, still flying jets, and they're neck and neck. So it looks like unless something unforeseen happens and they find a bunch of boxes somewhere over in Rankin County maybe, or Madison County, it looks like there's going to be a runoff there.
Well, I think it's surprising a lot of people that Mr. Guest is in a runoff. And so I know that there's a young African-American Democratic candidate that's waiting
He is.
He's waiting patiently on his opportunity to go against the Republican nominee when that issue is settled.
Shawaski Young. He's had appointments. He had appointments in the Obama administration, and a newcomer politically. But boy, he's got a broad-based campaign. He's getting out there. Again, I just either yesterday or the day before, I sent him an invitation to come join us to put his message out there on the air so that people can hear, where he stands on the issues and what he intends to do.
So now I can't tell by the name, but rumor has it that this gentleman is of African American origin.
Absolutely, he sure is. But he's got my same last name, so I know he's my brother somewhere along the line.
How do you pronounce his first name again?
Shawaski.
Shawaski.
S-H-U. Waski. Shawaski.
I've not heard of an African American with a name like that. I would have thought that was some Asian of descent or something of that nature.
Yeah, not sure how all that comes to pass. Sometimes names can be interesting to follow up on that.
But he has secured the Democratic nomination.
He's secured. He was resting easy yesterday when all these other folks were battling it out. Yep. Hey, we're going to take a stop here now to take a little break, and when we come back, we'll pick back up on the Mississippi voting that happened yesterday, and then move on to some local issues. But once again, we thank you for joining us. We Believe Digital News Break. We're here typically 3 days a week, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Tuesdays and Wednesdays around the noon hour, and then on Fridays, maybe going to be 1:30 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Fridays. Our call-in number is 1-800-492-5186, and we very much appreciate our sponsors, so we'll take a little break and listen to these commercials.
Socrates Garrett ENT.com is a diversified firm specializing in recycled aggregates and crushed concrete. Socrates Garrett ENT.com's recycled materials provide the construction industry with significant economic and environmental benefits by recycling clean concrete rubble into M.Dot grade rock materials. Recycled aggregates and crushed concrete can be applied to driveways, road construction, bank protection, parking lots, general bulk fills, and more. By using Socrates Garrett ENT.com's crushed concrete products, anyone from homeowners to general contractors can help reduce landfilled concrete waste, conserve natural resources, and gain significant economic savings on materials and disposal costs. For more information, please call 601-896-0084 or visit us online at SocratesGarrettENT.com.
Welcome back. We're glad you're joining us again, and we want to remind people that just like you've just seen these high-quality commercials that are here, in a manner of speaking, this is your studio. We've got a very unique opportunity to have this studio here in the heart of the Deep South down in Jackson, Mississippi. We're happy to advertise your goods and services. We have a young and talented studio production team that can help you, assist you with your needs to be able to showcase your goods and services here on our African American owned platform right here in Jackson. So, Mr. Garrett, let's just jump back in on those elections yesterday, so we let the people know. We went over the first congressional district. The Republican primary was won by Trent Kelly, won that easily. In the second, Benny Thompson won with 96% of the vote. In the Democratic primary, there's a Republican primary that went on yesterday, and Brian Flowers in the second emerged. However, it's still not clear whether he'll face a gentleman named Ronald Eller or Michael Carson for the Republican side of the ticket for the 2nd congressional district. We already talked about the 3rd district with Michael Guest and Michael Cassidy. The two Michaels look like they're heading for a runoff. And then in the 4th, maybe is it fair to say controversial? There's a Steve Palazzo down in the 4th. Now you're talking to the lower part of the state and the Gulf area and everything. He's been in office quite some time now, but there's always some reports that follow him around and so forth. This year it may be a little bit different. So it looks like they're heading for a runoff there on June 28th. Palazzo will be up against Jackson County, not Jackson City, but Jackson County Sheriff Mike Ezell, or a retired banker by the name of Clay Wagner that appears to be a newcomer to the political scene. So it looks like Mr. Palazzo has his hands full in the 4th district there, Mr. Garrett.
Well, vote is very important, and we're going to go back to your your statement that only approximately 10% of our voters actually went to the poll. Now, we've been experiencing low voter turnout and voter apathy for some time now, and a continual decline of the number of people that are participating. And many people call it apathy, and I'm beginning to call it a voter protest. That this passive aggressive position is being taken to demonstrate dissatisfaction with the electorate. And so if people don't feel like their lives are being changed, as a matter of fact, if they feel like their quality of life is being lessened or worsened or in decline, then they don't have a reason to vote. And so I think that's some of what we're seeing here in this low turnout in Mississippi. I don't know what the answer to that is, Chris. I do know that there is a danger that a small group of people are able to control the government, that is a dangerous thing. And so we need to find some way to address that as a state and as a city.
Yeah, I would think in a deeply red state like this, but then again, it could apply the other way, I suppose, too. But I would think that there'd be many people that might welcome that if this is a protest. I think there might be many people that would try to make best use of that thought process.
Well, in terms of you being able to secure the election because so few people participate.
That's right.
And those with better finance, more resources are able to secure and control the electorate.
And I don't think that's going to be the African American population in this state.
Wow.
When we know that we have a state that's 40% of the state is African American, if too many people are protesting, that's gonna create a void, and also so many people are in a condition of poverty here in the state of Mississippi, not exclusively African American, but I think it's safe to say majority African, the people that are in poverty. So that protest, I think that could roll downhill in a bad way.
Well, sometimes you got to bottom out. You can't fix a moving plane until you suspend the flight and get it in the hangar. Sometimes you got to get to a situation where you got to stop. You got to rethink the process. You got to rethink the protocols. You got to rethink how you are going to improve the quality of life in your communities. And I think that can only be done when people are willing to come to the table through economic summits, through crime summits, through education summits, to say that this is what we're lacking.
And do you think that could also be fertile ground for potential candidates to become more motivated and say, yes, they're really trying to do something, and I can be part of that. So maybe I'll stand for a local election or so forth, and so that we can get some high quality African American candidates here in our local council, board of supervisors, etc.
Yeah, I think that from summits you get a part of summits or training, recruitment, and training. My good friends, Eldridge Henderson is always talking about you got to train your own inside of the churches, inside of etc. But you got to bring folk together and say, look, we're in this together. It's when a coach goes to the mound, a baseball coach goes to the mound to remove the starting pitcher, he is not abandoning the team. That's why you have relief pitchers. That's why you have redundancy in the organization, so that maybe we're just having a bad day. You'll be my starter once again, but for right now, I got to take you out the game. And I think some of that mentality has got to find its way into our politics.
And, this makes me thinking, since we're started down the path with more local issues, it makes me thinking, too, about this, the last turnouts for Jackson City Council. You'd be shocked to know that, some people gained a seat or kept a seat by 1,000 votes. 1,000 votes. And we have 155,000 people in Hinds County, in the city of Jackson, rather. And somebody's getting in office or keeping their seat with a mere 1,000 votes. So maybe you're onto something with this protesting, and maybe we are heading towards bottoming out.
Yeah, well, currently I think we are. And there's some tragedy associated with that. There's setbacks, in business. We have bankruptcies. And once you experience bankruptcy, whether it's in business, whether it's in politics, whether it's in your personal life, once you experience it, the rebuilding starts. And then your wisdom is increased, because while you may not know exactly what to do, you know specifically what not to do, because you know what did not work.
And always darkest before the dawn.
Always darkest. My old man that taught me how to play checkers used to say, big stars falling not long before day. And so that was to say, as he gained most of my major pieces, we knew it was going to be over quickly.
Right.
And so we have to look at it that way, and we have to go through that process. I remind our viewers all over this country that it was Newt Gingrich that came up with the contract with America that pushed him into power and influence and allowed him to be elected because of that concept. We need a contract with Jackson,
right,
and Jackson's citizens, because there's some hard lifting that has to be done. Chris, we were talking about the Black Rodeo just before we came on air, and issues like that. have to be dealt with, and we have to deal with these things together.
That's right. And, yesterday the Jackson City Council did talk about that issue. And, it was just a few weeks ago when the Black Rodeo Association said, the Real Cowboy Association is their proper name, said that they were going to cancel this year. And this has been an ongoing event here, with the exception of the year before for the COVID, for 18 years. This would be the 19th year of the Black Rodeo here in Jackson. And what happened due to the shooting at the Mudbug Festival, the Agriculture Commissioner and his people decided that more security was needed. And so they tacked on, extra monies. It appears was in the vicinity of $9 or $10 grand, something like that, for extra security. And then a local state senator, John Horn, got involved and brought parties together and said that the security is going to be provided for. But but yesterday at the council meeting, the city council held off on providing $15,000 for added security, tabled it until a meeting on the 21st of the month.
Yeah, I had an opportunity to speak to Councilman Banks regarding that issue prior to going on air today. And from what I gathered from the conversation was that the city is committed to providing the funds for security. It's the methodology, means and methods on how they're going to go about doing it. It's critically important that the city supports an economic engine like the Black Cowboys that historically has done a great job in Jackson. It brings black pride and shows black children something that they don't see often. You mentioned the Mud Bug Festival, and there was a shooting there that sparked all of this additional security requirements. What kind of shooting was it at the Mud Bug? Was it one of these shootings like happened in Buffalo or in Texas? I mean, what happened at Mud Bug Festival?
It wasn't like a mass shooting event, but it does. It wasn't like we would think of in those terms, and the one person that was killed was the shooter, and he was killed by an off-duty police officer or an off-duty sheriff from an outlying community that happened to be there, and but still, I believe there were a total of 8 people injured. Not positive they were all injured by gunfire, just stampeding around and trying to run away and so forth.
So there was no motive for the shooting? There was no racial overtones? There was no
young teenagers.
Just how many teenagers?
Two teenagers.
2 teenage boys?
I want to say 16 and 17.
African Americans?
Yes.
And they were in the parking lot?
That part I can't say.
And so they got in some kind of an argument or altercation with one another and start shooting in the parking lot?
You don't see a lot on it. I wasn't there, and you don't see a lot of those level of details.
Did it gain national attention in any way?
It did.
Okay. And after that, an event, then the requirement for additional security and the increase of the Capitol Police Department were the initiatives that the Secretary of Agriculture?
Well, the Agriculture Commissioner, Andy Gibson, indicated that we're not putting up with this, any longer. We're going to have extra security. In fact, he's immediately floated a plan. He was not disparaging towards the local law enforcement. He said, he wasn't trying to point fingers at them. But then he floated a plan for needing $6 million to convert an old military armory on the fairground on the real estate of the fairgrounds into a response command center, into a law enforcement command center, so that the overall presence of law enforcement is beefed up at all these events.
Interesting.
Now, I'm assuming it's all these events, but I'll be looking back on that carefully and see if it really is beefed up at all events or just, Black Rodeo. And we're starting to run out of time here, so just a little reminder, too, something free coming up on Juneteenth weekend, 17, 18, and 19 June. Juneteenth weekend, the two museums in Jackson, Mississippi, beautiful museums. Of course, there's the Mississippi Museum of Civil Rights History, but that wasn't allowed to stand alone, so they built right beside it the Museum of Mississippi History. So two different museums side by side, two different portrayals, of course, but free admission. Now, if I'm not mistaken, that's normally a $12 ticket, so that'll be free for that Juneteenth weekend. Just want to make you aware of that. And we thank you for tuning in today, and we look forward to seeing you on Friday at probably 1:30, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And I hope you have a good day today, and be sure to stay safe. Thank you.